Hello and welcome to the Forces Sports Show, your weekly roundup of the best action and biggest stories from across the services, coming up in the next half hour. On a high, the Army celebrate their first Inter-Services Rugby League title for 5 years. Brought down to earth, the UK Armed Forces footballers are beaten for the first time in 13 months. Full of ups and downs, we're on board at the Inter-Services Mountain Bike Championships. We start with the Inter-Services Rugby League, where the Army are celebrating a double title success. Victories against the RAF at Featherstone saw both the men's and women's teams take the championship crowns. John Knighton reports.
Right from the off, the Army showed they meant business, taking the lead after just 5 minutes. Ryan Watkin on the end of relentless pressure for a converted try, which gave a taste of just what was in store for the spectators and also for the RAF players. The second try resulted from a breakaway from James Farrell. And there was an inevitability about the outcome. Peter Holmes making no mistake for a 10-0 lead. And the third try followed soon after, scrum half Matt Keenan picking up the ball on the sixth tackle, feeding Declan Baines to Sam Coleman and Mike Harrison before Dan Tooth got the final touch. The Army totally in command, 14-0 at the break. The RAF briefly threatened at the start of the second half, their one real chance of the whole match, which Kev Rakow was able to score from, Cy Ray adding the conversion. But after that, the Army re-established their total domination. Their fourth try was a brilliant solo effort from Urea Nolusala, collecting Jamie Lang's pass, and his pace was too much for anyone in a light blue shirt, with Roach's conversion making it 20 points to 6. Lang then produced two brilliant efforts of his own. A lovely kick from Roche collected by Lang. Minutes later, he scored again. The RAF caught flat-footed from a scrum for a sixth try. The Army now to sight the conversion, making it 32 points to 6. And they had time to add two further scores, with the RAF wishing the final whistle would come early, as they succumbed time after time to the Army's relentless pressure. Peter Holmes the man to cross the line, this time in the corner for his second try. There was a hint of a forward pass for the Army's eighth try, but Michael Hoyle, who also converted the effort, wasn't complaining. The final score, 42-6 to the Army, an emphatic victory to clinch the Inter-Services title.
I was here 5 years ago, well, up in Portsmouth 5 years ago when we last got the win. I think I'm the only surviving member of it, and it's been too long. It's been far too long, 5 years, and we've earned it tonight. We've earned it last week, and the boys just been fantastic.
Really terrific performances over the two games, as you say. Tonight, the RAF really never got a look in, apart from maybe one try at the beginning of the second half. You were absolutely dominant.
We've got to be ruthless, which I think we was clinical in all the right areas. We didn't even really give them a look into the game, and this squad's been building for 2 years, and we just come together, and I think it all peaked tonight and last week as well.
The floor was the key battle for us. We've worked hard all year on it, and I think from minute one we won in every collision, and we especially up the hill we scored points, and that just I think it just tired the legs out of them, and they just couldn't compete with us at the end.
The title means so much to the Army, who for the past 5 years have watched the Royal Navy and the RAF enjoy the success of this moment. Now it's their turn. Silverware too for the Army women. They also secured the Inter-Services title with a thumping 48-6 win over the RAF to follow up their mauling of the Royal Navy last week. In all, they scored 9 tries against the RAF, who at least crossed the Army line for one converted score of their own. The Army were totally dominant though, leading 26-6 at half-time and added 5 more tries after the break. They remain unbeaten since the women's Inter-Services competition began in 2008.
It was a good game. I don't think the score reflects the game. The RAF put a good game out for us, and it was a bit touch and go at times, but we'll pull through at the end.
What does it mean to the girls to lift this title again?
It's everything. Like 11 years in a row, it was ours to lose, and the RAF had nothing to lose. They put everything into it, but in the end we managed to do it.
The UK Armed Forces football team suffered a setback as they prepare for their defence of the Kentish Cup against the French and Dutch forces. In the first of 2 warm-up games, the UKAF team were well beaten by students from the University of South Wales. Kath Brazier reports.
Not exactly men versus boys, but this is a fixture the students particularly look forward to, testing themselves against the best in the military. Making space up front, 2 early chances went bagging, both offside. At the other end, UKAF's Adam Wakely clattered the post. But the first score came from the university. Some patient work in front of goal, Mikey George slotting it home. Then, right on the stroke of half-time, Danny Williams and Lewis Gerrard doubled their lead, combining to make it 2-0 to the home team at the break. More goals and plenty more chances in the second half. Danny Earl with this scissor kick, testing the Wales keeper. In the opposite goal, Luke Kearney kept his cool in a one-on-one. And Rob Farkin saw the funny side of his missed opportunity. But it was the men in red who again took advantage, the agile right foot of Miles John hitting the target. The host national under-21 keeper, though, was still being tested. This double attack was quickly followed up by a corner. Sam Atkinson took it, Danny Kerr converted. UKAF remained determined at both ends, but the students had the last word. Substitute Ben Rose-Miles with a wonderful solo effort to finish off the game 4-1.
Profile-wise, brilliant for us because it's a bit of a reality check sometimes for the students that we pick up to play men and men that play good football and obviously do a great job protecting us in the country as well. But no, hugely proud that university can host this fixture.
We had lots and lots of chances, but I'm very relaxed, you know, positivity. Today was about seeing the faces, getting the boys out, and we use this as a building block. And we'd not been beat for 13 months, so that allows us now to just put a line in the sand and move on, because you're only as good as your last game, and we got beat 4-1 today, so now we move forward.
Bristol City under-23s then await this lot in a fortnight's time. Improvements to be made, but spirits remain high.
The Royal Navy mountain bikers have won their first Inter-Services Downhill Championship. They did it at one of the most demanding tracks in the UK. As well as the team title, individual honours were also at stake. John Knighton went to see the action at Hopton Woods in Shropshire.
It's spectacular, adrenaline rushing and at times dangerous. The Navy's Mark Kavanagh OK after this crash. Downhill mountain biking is one of the fastest growing sports in the military. 110 men and women from across the services descending on Hopton Woods in Shropshire for the 2018 Championships. The downhill track is about 4 kilometres in length and takes the top riders here about 2.5 to 3 minutes to complete. So what do they think of it?
Good track, starts off a bit pedally, you know, that's going to certainly go in the favour of the enduro riders. Then it gets a little bit loose, gets a bit technical, and then there's some nice jumps, big sort of bike park section at the end. You've got to keep it pretty pinned for that, otherwise you're going to lose a bit of time.
I don't think it's been too bad actually, it's dried up really well. We're sticking, the tyres are holding. There's a couple of little sections you've got to worry about, but I think it's a good track, a bit of variation, so it's going to be good.
Men's individual champion, the RAF's Tom Hunt, hoped for better than last year, and he got his wish. But it was the Navy team who saw off the stiffest of challenges by the Army to claim the team title.
Absolutely amazing. Navy doesn't get to win things very often, especially in services, and to win the downhill for the first time ever is absolutely amazing.
That Navy win by just 3 seconds overall across the team performances over the 2 runs, the narrowest of margins, but it gives the Navy the team title for 2018. Also taking place, the cross-country event with cyclists having to climb as well as go downhill. That race dominated by the RAF men and Army women.
Today was emotional going up the hill, but the downhill bit on this course was really enjoyable. And hats off to these guys that do it and just go downhill holding on for dear life. But it's quite a good sport because there's the different ranges of it. So if someone's into road cycling, they can sort of get into mountain biking via the cross-country route because they'll be pretty strong on the uphills. And those people that do sort of downhill can also have a go at cross-country. They'll be stronger on the downhill parts and might find the uphill emotional, but it's brilliant. Fitness, really good.
It'd be great to see some more females along. It is a really good buzz, and quite often we'll ride the course together. The females stop and look at things, so yeah, there's nothing scary about it.
The Army's golfers have retained both the men's and women's team titles at the Inter-Services Championships, but it was the players from the Royal Navy who took the individual honours. John was watching.
The past few days couldn't have been a bigger contrast to last year's blustery links conditions at Saunton, but the result was the same: Army domination. Both the men and women had seen off the RAF's best on day one, with the RAF men narrowly defeating the Navy and Navy women triumphing over the Air Force on day two. The Navy already had plenty to celebrate. Navy team captain Lauren Holston winning the individual women's title, and former professional golfer Tom Fox from the same unit and squadron at RNAS Coldrose, the men's individual champion.
It's a great privilege to have won the title. The team and the field that I played against are very, very strong golfers. I shot a career round, actually the best round I've ever hit. And so to win with such a good score on such fantastic courses, it's an honour.
I wasn't expecting too much really when I turned up. Didn't have much form coming into it. Went out there, didn't really know much about the event. Obviously only what the my other colleagues have said. So yeah, just turned up and did my thing, and I was first out playing with a player that I grew up playing golf with, so I knew him really well. So it was a relaxing day and played well and come in and yeah, did the job.
The morning foursomes were crucial. The Army women had secured a 3-1 victory in the 4 matches and continued that into the singles. They were pushed all the way though by the Navy, but were able to secure the title. The Navy men knew if they could get any sort of a lead it would put pressure on the Army, but it was the men in red jerseys who prevailed, taking a 1-point advantage into the afternoon singles. Both teams produced some great golf. The Army's Chris Bradley, in his 15th season with the team, took on Lloyd Edwards of the Royal Marines and produced a blistering performance, 6 under par after 8 holes. He went on to win his match 8 up with 7 to play.
Yeah, I mean, I love coming to Thrillford. The facilities are great, the courses are brilliant. It's just a joy to play, to be honest, and quite privileged to be able to play it.
The Navy made a great fight of it though. Chuck Norris on fire with the putter, and Tom Fox producing his best team golf of the week, winning his match with Jordan Slater 3-1. But the Army were also on top form, and among many fine matches was a terrific battle between Lewis Phillips and the Navy's Glenn Rayburn. Both men produced some outstanding golf. This possibly one of the shots of the day. In fact, the shot to win the tournament and leave the Fusilier delighted in his first ever Inter-Services Championship.
Oh, they have the standard of golf here in the forces. Fair play to both of them. They've just, I've had tough games all week, and luckily I've come out of 2.5 points. And I mean, the lads have been there every step of the way, which is superb.
With the Invictus Games drawing ever closer, training is intensifying for the UK athletes. For the wheelchair rugby team, there are only a few sessions left before travelling to Sydney. Rosie Layden caught up with them at their base in Birmingham.
Originally known as murder ball, wheelchair rugby is a highly physical and aggressive game which can look absolutely terrifying.
If you're travelling full pelt at someone and they're doing the same to you and then you smash into each other, yeah, you get the shock going through the chair and into you a little bit, but to be honest, the chair takes a lot of the impact. It's not as scary as what you actually think, to be honest. Although the sound of it as well, it sounds horrendous and that, but it's not actually that too bad.
Team captain Clive Smudge Smith originally preferred football to rugby, but when he lost both legs while on duty as a bomb disposal officer in Afghanistan, he opted to switch sports.
It's a whole new thing for me. I was a football boy through and through. That was where my sport was. But obviously, it's a lot more difficult to find a wheelchair adapted variant for football as it is. But no, I say it's a sport that I love and I keep enjoying, keep coming back to every week.
Last year, the team lost out on the gold medal to rivals Denmark. This time, they don't want to come second.
We wouldn't be going there to make up the numbers. We're going there to compete. We're going there to show the rest of the world what we can do, and hopefully we can come away with a gold.
I think we can go all the way. I think this team, as you've seen from what you've watched, very good team, a very good team. We've got some players who aren't here, who will come in and enhance it as well. But this is a very good team this year. I'm very impressed with them, I must admit.
The team have just 2 more training sessions before they head out to Australia to start the Invictus Games in earnest.
Rugby Premiership side Harlequins have been playing host to some very special guests. The club is looking to bolster ties with the military and enjoyed a flying visit by members of 3 Regiment Army Air Corps. The English Premiership rugby season is just a few weeks old, but already leading club side Harlequins have called in the big guns. Out of the Surrey skies, 2 Apache helicopters. The aircraft had been flown into Quinn's training ground in Guildford by members of 663 Squadron, 3 Regiment Army Air Corps. Once the aircraft had landed safely, it was a chance for the players to have a closer look at some of the UK military's top hardware. The visit had been organised by ex-Army Major Andy Sanger, who was the former head coach of the Army rugby team. Now player development manager for Quins, he's keen to strengthen ties between the club and the military.
There's 2 things really. It's just sort of forming a partnership between Harlequins and the Army and making what is already a strong link between the club and the forces a little bit stronger, but also some leadership opportunities for both organisations, and hopefully we can get something that will benefit both the Army and Harlequins on the rugby field.
One of the Apache pilots is Jamie Miller. The captain had his career as a pro player cut short by injury. He still managed to feature for the Army against the Navy at Twickenham last year and perhaps knows more than most the crossovers between rugby and the military.
There's a huge amount of similarities between what we do and what they do, and part of what we're doing here is to open up or make aware some of the opportunities that exist within the Army, particularly the Army Air Corps, but equally just to kind of highlight some of the stresses and the pressures that we face, how we deal with those, and hopefully we can share some of their experience about how they equally deal with some of the stresses and pressures they face.
The servicemen gave a briefing too, sharing ways of coping under pressure and what it's like working with the Apache.
Thanks again for coming down.
The club were grateful for the soldiers' time and presented them with team shirts. With those items safely stashed away, it was time for the crew to depart. Certainly not your average training session for the team, but as their season unfolds, the visit could well make all the difference in deciding how far they climb up the league table and beyond. 3 soldiers are among a team of 4 men training to row the Atlantic. They start their challenge to travel across the ocean to Antigua in December. Tim Cooper has been to meet the team known as the Men of Ormy.
When Captain Robin Drysdale was diagnosed with cancer, he wanted to challenge himself. So he spoke to Captain David Wallace, now an Army Reserve, Sam Bolt Lawrence, a civilian plasterer, and Captain William Theakston, also an Army Reserve, and somehow persuaded them that rowing across the Atlantic in this small boat was a good thing to do. The men are collectively known as the Men of Ormy. They're looking to complete the row from the Canary Islands to Antigua in 40 days, and today they're getting ready for a 24-hour training row from their Christchurch base.
When I was diagnosed with bowel cancer 2 years ago, I was introduced to a guy who gave me a lot of confidence because he'd been through a similar thing, and he told me how his life had carried on as normal after his diagnosis and after his treatment. And I felt that was a really important message for me, and I want to give others the same confidence. I feel that this challenge is a platform from which I can do that.
The team are raising money for Bowel Cancer UK and combat stress. The military members of the crew drawing on their army experiences to prepare mentally and physically.
We are in a small confined space here, and yes, back in Afghanistan we were on top of each other more or less, but that was something you learn very quickly to get on with, and I think that's something we've accepted here in this situation as well.
And we're actually doing a lot of time discussing things as a crew about how we're going to deal with conflict and resolve any sort of issues we might have in terms of the small things like someone leaving their toothbrush on the left-hand side rather than the right.
Sam doesn't have the military experience of the others, so how does he think he'll get on?
These guys are good with their admin and stuff like that, and you give them a set of tools and they're pretty useless. So that's where I come into my own. But yeah, I think I'll fit in. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it won't take long, I don't think.
The men are about to begin their first 24-hour row, swapping the calm of the marina for the strengthening breezes of the English Channel and Jurassic Coast. But that'll be as to nothing compared to the mountainous seas that could await them when they set off in December to row the Atlantic.
And that is it for this week. Don't forget you can see all the action as we get it on forces.net and this show and more on YouTube. We'll leave you with action from the latest event of the Aircom Games, where the RAF men took the honours in the tennis tournament. See you next time. Bye.